Hey everybody, Tim here doing Iron Sharpens Iron. That's what I think I'm going to start calling these little videos that I make, since that's what I've named my Facebook page and my YouTube channel. Incidentally, if you haven't checked out my Facebook page or YouTube channel, both called Iron Sharpens Iron, then what are you waiting for? I'm going to keep on making these little videos, and if you don't like my page or my channel, you might miss one of them that you would have really liked. Anyway, today I want to talk about the idea of intellectual property. Do you remember that controversy about the EpiPen being outrageously expensive? Well, you can't blame that on the free market. A lot of people have tried, but ultimately you have to blame that on the government, and here's why. So first of all, you have the FDA, which tightly controls which drugs are allowed to enter the market. And this means that any drug that is approved by the FDA is effectively given a monopoly over that corner of the market. Now, you learned in school about the problem with monopolies, right? Since monopolies have driven out all the other competition, they're now able to hike up their prices to whatever they want. And this is obviously bad for the consumer. So the same thing goes for government-granted intellectual property. It effectively gives a company a monopoly over their corner of the market. So what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is things like copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, or patents. It's the idea that when an artist or inventor comes up with an idea, that they should have a right to say what happens with that idea. Now, there's a big distinction to be made here. Say that I'm the inventor of the EpiPen. Now, it's one thing for me to take that physical EpiPen that I invented and say that's my own property, right? I made it out of my own materials, so that's just basic property rights. But it's another thing entirely for me to say that I can own the idea of an EpiPen. And that's what intellectual property is, the idea that you can own an idea or a concept. And that's what I'm against. So let's look at the moral argument for intellectual property. The moral argument for intellectual property is something like, since the artist or inventor worked really hard to come up with their idea, that they should have a right to that idea. Now, I understand this feeling. People want to be rewarded for the hard work that they did. But let's say that I'm the inventor of an EpiPen, right? So what I've really done as I invented that EpiPen was I discovered natural laws or natural truths. It's simply a natural truth that plastic and metal arranged in this specific fashion makes an efficient way for drugs to enter the bloodstream. So as I invented this thing, all I really did was make a discovery about nature. And you can't patent discoveries about nature. That would be like trying to patent gravity. Can you imagine somebody trying to patent gravity? That's absurd. The argument goes the same way for even something requiring as much creativity as, for instance, writing a song. Again, it's just a simple fact that tones arranged in a specific way are pleasing to the human ear, and you can't patent a natural fact. When an artist comes up with a song, what they're really doing is they're discovering natural facts about the world, that tones arranged in this way are pleasing to people. And you can't patent that. Copying is not theft. When I steal something from somebody, they no longer have that original thing. But if I copy it, now we both have that thing, and that's a win-win situation. It's not theft. Somebody might argue, yeah, well, you have the original thing, but what you're actually doing is you're denying me payment that rightfully belongs to me for the work that I did. But this doesn't make any sense. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm a villager and I'm a storyteller, and all these villagers are gathering around me every single day listening to my stories. And one day you decide that you're going to memorize one of my stories, and you go out and you start telling these stories in the public square, and villagers start gathering around you instead of me. Now, can I actually say that I have a right to that crowd? No, the crowd gets to choose wherever they want to go. Even if they're paying to go hear my stories and they decide that they want to go pay to hear you tell my stories instead, I don't have a right to say where those villagers go, and I don't have a right to tell them how they spend their money. Saying that I'm denying payment to somebody because I've copied their album is saying that you have the right to that payment before the fact, and you just don't. And then there's the utilitarian argument for intellectual property, and it goes as such. Since artists and inventors have an expectation that they're going to have a monopoly over the ideas that they create, this incentivizes them financially to keep on creating new ideas. But as long as we can prove that without intellectual property, artists and inventors would still have financial incentive to create things, this argument is fallacious. So let's look at some ways that artists or inventors could have financial incentive to create things without intellectual property. A lot of composers used to get paid on commission. So somebody would tell them, hey, I want you to write me a song. The composer would go out, make a composition, and then he would get paid for that song. Likewise, drug inventors could get paid on commission. Perhaps there would be insurance companies who would be willing to pay for an inventor to come out with a new drug that would help them cut down on their costs. And then you have the financial incentives from public appearances. Who would you rather see? Metallica or a cheap knockoff Metallica cover band? Who would you rather go pay to see? So artists could still get paid for throwing concerts even without intellectual property. Likewise, an inventor could get paid for his public speaking gigs. If somebody's producing his item, he could get paid to fill an advisory role within that company. There are tons of ways an artist or inventor could use their mind and their physical person to make a profit without having to control that intellectual idea itself. Finally, the artist or inventor could still get paid for selling that physical thing itself. Yeah, there would be a lot of cheap knockoffs, but there's something that feels good about owning the actual physical album with the real artwork and knowing that it's the official version. There's just something that feels good about it. And when I go out shopping, yeah, I'll buy a generic brand if I can't afford it, but when I can afford it, I prefer the name brand thing. So an artist or inventor could still remain very competitive selling his products even without intellectual property. So intellectual property is unnecessary on utilitarian grounds, and it's as immoral as the idea of trying to patent gravity. So what should you do? Well, I'm not going to tell you to go out and illegally download songs. I'm not going to tell you not to, because there's nothing morally wrong with it. And I'm not going to tell you to go out and call your senator or vote. What I would like you to do, though, is consider my arguments and change your mind, because politics follows culture. So as we change people's minds, we're actually changing the political scene. Hey everybody, iron sharpens iron, so if you have any questions or disagreements, then I'd love to hear them in the comments. Also, I have a new Facebook page and YouTube channel, both called Iron Sharpens Iron. So if you like what I'm doing, then like, follow, or share my page or my channel. Alright everybody, take it easy. Bye.